The emergency ward never slept during the plague. It only changed its rhythm, like a machine coughing between heartbeats. Ryan had stopped counting hours somewhere around the third week, when time became a suggestion rather than a rule. The lights hummed above him, too white, too bright, washing the room in a sterile glare that tried and failed to hide the desperation underneath. Alien and human patients lay separated by transparent containment fields, their breath fogging the air in uneven patterns. Different lungs, different blood chemistries, same fear. When they brought her in, she was already dying. The woman was light-boned, fragile in a way that made Ryan immediately angry at the universe. She looked human at first glance, until you noticed the long ears pressed flat against her head, twitching weakly with pain. In her arms was a bundle of blankets and wires, a child so small, Ryan wondered how she was still breathing at all. The scanners confirmed what his eyes already knew. The mother's organs were failing one by one, the plague rewriting her biology faster than any treatment could counter. The child, somehow, was still fighting. "Good news," Ryan muttered, more to himself than anyone else, snapping on a pair of gloves. "Your kid's stubborn." The woman smiled, just barely. "She gets that from my side of the family," she said, her voice thin but sharp enough to cut through the noise. "We are professionally difficult." Ryan glanced at her in surprise. Patients that close to death usually save their energy for screaming or praying. "I'm a medic, not a negotiator," he said. "If she inherited that, we're both in trouble." Her laugh turned into a cough, and the monitors protested loudly. Ryan worked faster, injecting an experimental hybrid serum that had no official approval and 3 handwritten warning notes attached to it. The plague didn't care about regulations, and neither did he. The child's vitals steadied, just a little, enough to keep hope alive. The mother watched every movement with fierce concentration, as if memorizing his hands. "My name is Desta," she said, "and this is Mira. If you save her, she will probably grow up to argue with authority figures." "I already like her," Ryan replied. "Bad sign for everyone." The humor helped, but only briefly. The truth was unavoidable. He could save the child. He could not save the mother. When he finally said it out loud, Desta didn't cry. She just nodded, long ears trembling slightly. "I suspected," she said. "You humans get very quiet when things are hopeless." Ryan swallowed. "I'm sorry." She reached out, fingers brushing his sleeve, wrinkling it despite her weakness. "Then listen carefully, human," she said. "If you ever meet her again, you tell her I was not afraid at the end. You tell her I was thinking of her, and you tell her that I loved her enough to be annoying about it." "That's very specific," Ryan said, voice unsteady. "I am dying," Desta replied dryly. "Specificity feels earned." The machines continued their slow, indifferent beeping. Outside the containment field, the ward roared on, full of suffering and small miracles. Ryan held her hand as her breathing faded, Mira's tiny fingers curling reflexively around nothing. Desta's last expression was not pain, but relief, as if she had finally set something heavy down. Years later, Ryan would remember the joke, the promise, and the way a dying woman trusted a stranger with her child's future. He would remember it even when he pretended not to. Ryan chose the station because nothing important ever happened there, which in his experience made it the safest place in the galaxy. It drifted on the edge of a minor trade route, just far enough from conflict to be boring, and just close enough to civilization to justify a medical license. The corridors smelled faintly of recycled air and overcooked algae, a comforting scent once you learned not to think about it. His clinic occupied a narrow section between a failing hydroponics bay and a shop that sold replacement parts for machines that no longer existed. It was quiet, predictable. Ryan liked that. Most days followed the same pattern. Minor radiation burns from careless dock workers, allergic reactions to imported food, the occasional alien with an anatomy chart Ryan still didn't fully trust. He patched people up, dispensed advice they wouldn't follow, and reminded himself that he had paid his debt to the universe already. The past stayed where he put it, folded neatly behind routine. Then the clinic door chimed and routine collapsed. The woman who stepped inside moved with the controlled grace of someone used to being watched. She looked human enough to trigger that instinctive misjudgment, until her long ears caught the light. extending elegantly past her hair. They twitched slightly as the door sealed behind her, adjusting to the station's artificial gravity. Her eyes scanned the room, taking inventory of equipment, exits, and Ryan himself with unsettling efficiency. Ryan smiled automatically. Welcome. If you're here for a checkup, you're early. If you're here to complain, you're also early. But I admire the enthusiasm. She studied him for a moment longer than necessary. You are Ryan, she said. That depends, he replied. If you're looking for the hero medic from the plague years, wrong clinic. If you need someone to tell you to drink more water, you're in luck. Her mouth curved, just barely. You still deflect with humor. My sister said you would. The word sister hit harder than any accusation. Ryan felt the station tilt, just a fraction, enough to throw off his balance. He set down the datapad he was holding before he dropped it. I have a lot of sisters, he said weakly. Statistically speaking. You held Desta when she died, the woman said calmly. That narrows it. Silence settled between them, thick and uncomfortable. The clinic's diagnostic unit emitted a cheerful beep, oblivious. Ryan rubbed a hand over his face. You could have opened with something lighter, he said. Weather, trade tariffs, the slow death of decency. I considered it, she replied, but my daughter was very specific. That word again, specific. Ryan exhaled slowly. I think you should sit down. She did, folding herself into the chair with careful precision, ears angling slightly backward in what Ryan recognized as restraint rather than fear. My name is Lyra, she said. I am Desta's sister. After the plague, I adopted her child. Mira. Ryan stared at her, heart thudding far too loud for such a small room. She lived, he said, the words escaping before he could stop them. Lyra raised an eyebrow. You sound surprised. I'm allowed to be, he said. I broke several medical protocols and at least one moral guideline. Survival was optimistic. Mira has always been optimistic, Lyra said. She insists it is hereditary. Ryan laughed before he could help it, a short, startled sound. That does sound like Desta. Lyra's gaze softened, just a little. Mira knows your name. She knows you saved her. She knows you were there when her mother died. She wants to meet you. The room felt smaller. Ryan leaned back against the counter, arms crossed as if that might keep the past from reaching him. I'm not a good memory, he said. I'm a reminder of something she lost. You are a reminder of something she survived, Lyra corrected. Also, she is a teenager. She believes discomfort is a renewable resource. Ryan snorted despite himself. That's universal then. Lyra stood, smoothing her coat. We are staying on the station for a while. Think about it, human. As she turned to leave, Ryan found his voice again. Lyra, he said. I never forgot them. Her ears angled slightly forward, acknowledging the truth without turning back. I know, she said. That is why we came. Ryan spent the next 2 days pretending he was considering Lyra's request, which was impressive given that he had already agreed in his head approximately 7 seconds after she left. He cleaned the clinic with unnecessary enthusiasm, reorganized instruments that did not need reorganizing, and lectured a maintenance drone about dust accumulation until it powered down in what he chose to interpret as passive resistance. Avoidance, he reminded himself, was a valid coping strategy until it wasn't. Mira arrived on the 3rd day. She did not knock. The clinic door slid open with an overly cheerful chime, and she walked in like someone entering a courtroom rather than a medical office. She was taller than Ryan expected, all long limbs and contained energy, her long ears angled forward with open curiosity instead of caution. Her eyes stopped him cold. They were Desta's eyes, not identical, but close enough that his brain stumbled over time for a moment. So, she said, arms crossed, voice steady. You're shorter than I imagined. Ryan blinked. You're blunter than I hoped. Lyra followed her in, clearly enjoying herself. I warned you, she said. She has prepared questions. I have a list, Mira added, tapping the data pad in her hand. It is organized by emotional difficulty. Ryan stared at the pad, then at Lyra. Is this an interrogation? More of a structured conversation, Lyra replied, with follow-ups. Ryan gestured weakly toward the examination chair. Do you want to sit or stand menacingly, I can work with either. Mira considered, then sat, swinging her legs slightly. Standing is more dramatic, she said, but my aunt says drama is not a substitute for substance. Your aunt is wise, Ryan said. She is very annoying about it, Mira replied without missing a beat. That did it. Ryan laughed, the tension loosening just enough to let air back into the room. All right, he said. Ask. Mira studied him carefully before speaking again. I don't remember my mother, she said. I remember stories. I remember recordings. I remember what other people felt about her, but not her. My species doesn't like gaps. We notice them. Ryan nodded. Humans mostly pretend gaps don't exist. I know, Mira said. I've read your literature. You call it mystery and charge admission. Lyra coughed, suspiciously like a laugh. Mira leaned forward. I want to know who she was when it mattered. Not the official version, not the heroic version. The real one. Ryan swallowed. She was stubborn, he said slowly. Funny, she made jokes when she shouldn't have. She cared more about you than about staying alive, which I told her was deeply unfair. What did she say? Mira asked. That she was an older sister, Ryan replied, and had practiced being unfair. Mira smiled at that, small and genuine. That sounds right. They talked for hours, about the plague, about alien physiology that refused to cooperate with human medicine, about the experimental serum that technically should not have worked but did anyway. Ryan explained the science as best he could, and Mira corrected him twice using information from her own species' medical archives. Each correction came with a grin that suggested she enjoyed catching him out. At one point, she tilted her head. Did she suffer? Ryan hesitated, feeling the weight of that moment press against his ribs. She was in pain, he said honestly, but she wasn't afraid at the end. She was focused. Mira absorbed that quietly. On me. Yes, Ryan said. Entirely on you. Silence settled, but it wasn't heavy this time. It was the kind that rearranged things inside you. Lyra watched them both, ears angled in a way Ryan was starting to recognize as relief. Finally, Mira stood. I think, she said carefully, that you did what you could, which is apparently more than most humans. I'll take that as high praise, Ryan said. It is, she replied. Very high. As they prepared to leave, Mira paused at the door. We will come back, she said. I still have questions. Many of them. Ryan nodded. I'll be here. I know, Mira said, and for the first time, it felt like a promise rather than a test. The second visit was quieter, which Ryan had learned was more dangerous than the first. Silence invited honesty, and honesty had a habit of digging where humor usually put up fences. Mira arrived with fewer questions prepared and more curiosity uncontained. She wandered the clinic like it was a museum exhibit dedicated to poor organizational choices, poking at instruments and reading labels out loud. This one says it measures neural resonance, she said. Why is it dusty? It senses judgment, Ryan replied. It stopped working after I bought it. Lyra rolled her eyes and took a seat near the window, pretending not to listen while listening very carefully. Mira finally settled across from Ryan, her ears twitching as the station's gravity fluctuated slightly, a reminder that even stillness in space was an illusion. I want to talk about the end, Mira said. Ryan had known this was coming. He nodded slowly. All right. My species records significant moments through shared memory constructs, she continued. I have fragments, emotional impressions passed down through my aunt. But they are incomplete. I need clarity. Ryan leaned back, folding his hands together. Clarity is overrated, he said, but I'll do my best. Mira tilted her head. You're stalling. Yes, Ryan admitted. Professionally. She waited him out. Teenagers, he reflected, were terrifying across all known species. She was tired, he began, the kind of tired that goes past sleep and into the bones. The machines were loud and the wards smelled like antiseptic and panic. She hated both. Mira smiled faintly. She always complained about smells. She told me humans cry too loudly, Ryan said. Said it like a scientific observation. Lyra snorted softly from her chair. Ryan continued, choosing each word with care. She asked me to promise something, not to save her. She knew that wasn't possible. She wanted to make sure you wouldn't grow up wondering if you were loved. Mira's fingers tightened around the edge of the table. What exactly did she say? Ryan met her eyes. She said, "Tell her I was thinking of her at the end. Tell her I wasn't afraid. And tell her I loved her enough to be annoying about it." Mira let out a breath she'd been holding for years without realizing it. That is very her. Yes, Ryan said quietly. She looked down, ears lowering slightly. Was she in pain? Yes, Ryan answered. But she was focused. On you. On making sure you would be all right. On making sure someone remembered. Mira nodded, absorbing the truth instead of flinching from it. In our culture, she said, pain at the end is not considered failure. Fear is. Then she did very well, Ryan said. Lyra stood and crossed the room, placing a hand on Mira's shoulder. Your mother was stubborn to the last, she said. Consistently. Mira laughed, a short, surprised sound that broke through the heaviness. Of course she was. The station lights dimmed briefly as the artificial cycle shifted, casting the room in a softer glow. Mira closed her eyes for a moment, committing something unseen to memory. When she opened them again, there was relief there. Not joy, not happiness, but understanding. Thank you, she said to Ryan, for telling me the truth. Ryan nodded. Thank you for asking. As they left, Ryan realized something unsettling and gentle all at once. The promise he had made years ago was no longer a burden, it was becoming a bridge. By the time Ryan realized the visits had become routine, it was already too late to pretend they were temporary. Lyra and Mira stopped arriving like guests and started arriving like gravity, unannounced, unavoidable, and quietly reshaping everything around them. The clinic began to feel less like a place where people came to be fixed, and more like a place where people stayed to be argued with. Mira took it upon herself to reorganize one of the supply cabinets, declaring that Ryan's filing system was less a system and more an emotional plea. She labeled drawers in 3 languages, 2 of which Ryan could not read, and 1 of which he was fairly sure was technically obsolete. When he objected, she informed him that cultural exchange required sacrifice. Lyra, meanwhile, discovered the clinic's ancient beverage synthesizer and declared war on it. This machine, she said one afternoon, poking at the flickering interface, refuses to acknowledge the existence of warmth. It produces liquid, Ryan said. That's its entire philosophy. It produces disappointment, Lyra replied, consistently. Despite the bickering, something gentle settled into the space between them. Ryan found himself looking forward to their arrivals, to Mira's relentless curiosity and Lyra's quiet observations. Mira asked questions about human medicine that drifted into questions about human habits, then into questions about Ryan himself. He answered carefully at first, then less so. One evening after a particularly long day, Ryan caught Mira studying him with narrowed eyes. You don't talk about your family, she said. That's because I enjoy silence, he replied. Unacceptable, she said. All data gaps must be addressed. Lyra smiled faintly. She gets that from her mother. Ryan exhaled and leaned back in his chair. I had a family, he said. I left them behind when the war started. By the time it ended, we had become strangers with matching names. Mira considered this. Humans are very inefficient with connection. We like to keep expectations low, Ryan said. She nodded solemnly. That explains your furniture. Humor threaded through the grief, not erasing it, but softening its edges. Ryan realized that laughter didn't diminish Desta's memory. It made it survivable. Mira began sharing stories of her childhood, filtered through alien customs and scientific explanations that somehow made them funnier. Lyra spoke occasionally of Desta, never with pain, but with fond exasperation. She once rewired a climate regulator because it annoyed her, Lyra said. We lived in winter for 3 weeks. She sounds wonderful, Ryan said. She was, Lyra replied simply. The turning point came quietly. Ryan found Mira sitting alone one afternoon, her attention fixed on a holographic projection hovering above her palm. It shimmered with half-formed shapes, memory constructs raw and unfinished. This is my coming-of-age archive, Mira said without looking up. I'm supposed to finalize it soon. Ryan frowned. You don't seem excited. I am, she said. I'm also afraid. Of what? That I will get it wrong, she said. That I will misunderstand her. That I will turn her into something simpler than she was. Ryan sat beside her. That's not how memory works, he said. It grows. It changes. It argues with you. Mira smiled. Then it's very human of you to say that. Lyra watched them from across the room, something unreadable in her expression. Later, as they prepared to leave, she paused beside Ryan. You know, she said quietly, you are not replacing her. I know, Ryan said. You are continuing her, Lyra replied. After they left, the clinic felt quieter than it had in weeks. Ryan looked around at the clutter, the mismatched labels, the lingering warmth of connection, and understood something he had avoided for years. The promise he had made was no longer about the past. It was about what came next. The day Mira told Ryan about the ritual, she did it the way she did most important things, casually as if gravity itself were optional. I will be undergoing neural convergence soon, she said, standing in the middle of the clinic and examining a cracked scanner like it had personally offended her. It is a cultural milestone. Very serious, mildly terrifying. There will be elders. Ryan looked up from stitching a minor burn. You lost me at elders. They will access my curated memory archive, Mira continued. They will evaluate emotional coherence, identity continuity, and unresolved narrative tension. Ryan paused. So, a performance review for your soul. Yes, Mira said, with snacks. Lyra, seated nearby, sighed. The snacks are never good. Mira's long ears twitched, a sign Ryan now recognized as nervous energy leaking through discipline. There is a problem, she added. Ryan set his tools aside. Of course there is. The archive is incomplete, Mira said. Not technically, emotionally. Ryan leaned back against the counter. You've been very clear about who your mother was. Yes, Mira replied, but not about who she was at the end. The room settled into a thoughtful quiet. Outside the clinic window, cargo drones drifted past like indifferent insects, carrying other people's priorities. My species believes unresolved final moments create instability, Mira went on. The mind keeps circling them. It looks for missing data. I do not want my life shaped by something unfinished. Ryan nodded slowly. That's fair. She looked at him then, really looked at him. There is one detail you have never told me. Lyra straightened slightly. Mira, it is my ritual, Mira said gently, and my mother. Ryan closed his eyes for a moment. The memory rose immediately, sharp and clear, as if it had been waiting for permission. She squeezed my hand, he said. Mira tilted her head. Before? At the very end, Ryan replied. Not hard, just enough to make sure I was still there. What did it mean? Mira asked. Ryan opened his eyes. Relief. She had done everything she needed to do. You were safe. The rest didn't matter. Mira absorbed this in silence, her ears lowering slightly, a posture of deep internal processing. In our culture, she said softly, a final touch is considered a transfer, not of responsibility, but of trust. Ryan exhaled. That sounds like her. Lyra smiled, small and sad and proud all at once. It does. The ritual took place days later in a shared neural chamber, rented from a very confused station administrator. Ryan attended as an observer, having been warned repeatedly not to touch anything, think too loudly, or faint dramatically. He failed at least one of those. Mira stood at the center of the chamber, light from the convergence field outlining her form. Memory constructs bloomed around her, moments, impressions, laughter encoded in neural light. Ryan recognized some stories. Others were entirely alien, beautiful and incomprehensible. When the moment came, Mira integrated the final memory. Not the plague, not the pain, the squeeze of a hand, the decision to let go. The elders watched. The chamber hummed. Ryan held his breath like it might affect the outcome. When it was over, Mira opened her eyes, steady and clear. She turned to Ryan and smiled. It fits, she said. Everything fits now. Ryan laughed weakly. I'm very glad. I was worried I'd break something. You already did, Mira replied. You broke the loop. Later, as they walked back through the station corridors, Mira bumped her shoulder lightly against Ryan's arm. You are now officially part of my archive. Ryan groaned. Is there paperwork? Yes, she said. Emotional paperwork. Lyra watched them with quiet satisfaction. Desta's story was no longer ending. It was echoing forward. The station changed seasons without warning, lights shifting tone and gravity adjusting in ways that suggested optimism rather than engineering. Ryan noticed it one morning while unlocking the clinic. The corridor outside warmer in color, less sterile. He told himself it meant nothing. He had been wrong about that before. Mira stopped announcing her visits altogether. She simply appeared, usually carrying something inappropriate for a medical environment. Once it was a portable neural projector, she insisted Ryan try, promising it would only mildly rearrange his emotional priorities. Another time it was a stack of Dota slates she dropped onto his desk. I am applying to an interspecies medical program, she said. Ryan stared at the slates. That sounds dangerously like ambition. Yes, Mira replied. I learned it from you. I plan to be annoying about it. Lyra watched from the doorway, arms folded, long ears angled in quiet amusement. She had settled into station life with unexpected ease, advising trade councils, correcting flawed xenobiology models, and occasionally reminding Ryan that his clinic violated at least 4 shared health accords. She never pushed. She didn't need to. Ryan noticed the change in himself gradually, the way you notice a scar healing only when it stops hurting. He slept more. He laughed without catching himself afterward. He stopped arranging his life around avoiding memories and started letting them sit where they belonged. Desta no longer appeared only in moments of guilt. She showed up in jokes, in Mira's expressions, in Lyra's dry patience. She felt present, not painful. One evening, after the clinic closed, the 3 of them shared a meal assembled from ingredients that should not have been allowed to coexist. The station's viewport glowed with distant stars, slow and steady. You could leave, Ryan said suddenly, surprising himself. Lyra raised an eyebrow. Are you asking us to? No, Ryan said quickly. I mean, you don't have to stay. The ritual is done. Mira has what she needed. Mira looked between them. That is not how bonds work, she said. You do not complete them. You maintain them. Ryan smiled. You're very sure of that. I have documentation, she replied. Lyra leaned back. Desta believed in continuation, she said quietly, not replacement. You understand that now? Ryan nodded. I think I always did. I just didn't know what to do with it. Later, as they walked through the corridor, Mira lagged behind, watching the stars through the viewport. You know, she said, my mother would have liked this place. Ryan chuckled. She would have complained nonstop. Yes, Mira agreed, affectionately. The next day, Ryan filed paperwork he had avoided for years, updating his credentials, expanding the clinic's scope. He integrated alien medical protocols, Mira suggested, even when he didn't understand them yet. He allowed himself to plan further than a week ahead. When Lyra eventually announced their departure date, temporary, she insisted, it didn't feel like loss. Mira hugged him without hesitation, long ears brushing his shoulder. You kept the promise, she said. Ryan shook his head. No, he said. I lived it. As the transport pulled away, Ryan stood watching until it vanished into the patterned traffic of the station. Then he turned back to the clinic, to the work waiting inside, to a life no longer defined by what he failed to save. The promise had not ended. It had simply become part of him.